If you're still copying random FPS boost videos without testing anything yourself, this video is about to embarrass you. Today, we're testing Win32PrioritySeparation, one of the most abused, misunderstood Windows tweaks on YouTube. Everyone screams, "Just set it to this value, bro!" But nobody benchmarks it properly. So I tested 4 different values, 22, 24, 38, and 40, using real gameplay, cap frame X, frame times, 1% lows, and actual data. No opinions, no placebo. Let's cook. Before anyone panics, understand this test was built for accuracy. All runs use the same system, settings, and gameplay. The only change was a single registry value, Win32PrioritySeparation. Each run started fresh after a reboot to ensure consistency. We measured performance with cap frame X, looking beyond just FPS to analyze frame time stability, 1% lows, and actual stutter percentage. Now, let's break down each value properly. We're starting with Win32PrioritySeparation set to 22, because this is the value that gets pushed everywhere like it's some secret Windows cheat code. You've seen it in Reddit threads, YouTube comments, Discord servers, and FPS pack descriptions. At first glance, this value looks impressive. Average FPS is high, sitting at around 354 FPS, and peak values go even higher. P95 climbs above 400 FPS, which is exactly the kind of number that makes bad optimization videos look convincing. But then you look at the frame time graph, and reality kicks in. Frame times are unstable. There are frequent spikes, some small, some very noticeable, and they happen throughout the entire recording. These aren't one-off hiccups. This is the Windows scheduler constantly fighting itself over thread prioritization. The 1% lows drop to around 251 frames per second, which is already a big fall compared to the average. But the real red flag shows up in the 0.1% lows, which collapse down to around 70 frames per second. That means real, visible hitching during intense moments. Cap frame X also reports measurable stuttering at around 0.6%. That might sound small on paper, but in a fast-paced game like Fortnite, that translates directly into micro freezes during fights, edits, and camera movement. So yes, value 22 gives you high FPS numbers, but it does it at the cost of consistency. This is classic Windows over-prioritization behavior. The scheduler pushes too hard, too fast, and frame times pay the price. High FPS doesn't matter if the game feels jittery, and this setting proves that perfectly. Now we move to value 24, and this is where the conversation changes completely. Right away, average FPS drops compared to value 22, landing around 290 FPS. And this is where people who don't understand performance would immediately click off the video and call it worse. But frame times don't lie. The frame time graph with value 24 is significantly cleaner. Spikes are minimal, the line stays tight, and fluctuations are controlled. This is what proper scheduling looks like. 1% lows improve to around 196 frames per second, which is much closer to the average, meaning performance stays consistent even under load. 0.1% lows jump dramatically compared to value 22, landing around 142 frames per second. That's a massive improvement in worst-case scenarios. And the most important part, cap frame X reports 0% stuttering. Not low, not almost none, literally 0. The system is no longer fighting itself, and Windows is allocating resources in a balanced way. This is the difference between chasing numbers and chasing real smoothness. Value 24 doesn't inflate FPS counters, but it delivers actual stability, which is exactly what competitive players need. This setting feels smoother, more responsive, and far more predictable during real gameplay. Next up is value 38, which pushes the scheduler further into aggressive territory, but not as extreme as the highest option. Average FPS lands around 269 FPS, placing it between values 22 and 24. On paper, it looks like a balanced option, and in some ways, it is. Frame times are mostly stable, but not as clean as value 24. You can see occasional spikes creeping back into the graph. They're not constant, but they're frequent enough to matter. 1% lows sit around 163 frames per second, and 0.1% lows fall to around 97 frames per second. That's a noticeable drop compared to value 24, especially during intense moments. CapFrameX reports slight stuttering at around 0.1%. Again, this isn't catastrophic, but it confirms what the frame time graph already shows. The scheduler is starting to overstep again. Value 38 sits in a middle ground. It doesn't completely break consistency, but it also doesn't fully preserve it. You gain some FPS, but you lose the frame time cleanliness that actually makes the game feel smooth. This is a compromise setting, and compromises always come with trade-offs. Finally, we reach value 40, the most aggressive setting in this test. Average FPS drops further to around 216 FPS, which is the lowest among all four values. Immediately, this tells you Windows is prioritizing control over raw throughput. Frame times are relatively stable, but not flawless. The graph is smoother than value 22 and 38, but not as clean as value 24. 1% lows land around 135 frames per second, and 0.1% lows drop to around 63 frames per second. That's better than value 22, but worse than both 24 and 38. Stuttering is reported at around 0.4%, which confirms that even at this extreme, the scheduler isn't perfectly balanced. Value 40 plays it safe. It sacrifices performance to avoid chaos, but in doing so, it becomes inefficient for competitive play. Smoothness alone doesn't win games if responsiveness and frame delivery lag behind. When you compare all four values side by side, patterns become obvious. Value 22 chases FPS numbers and loses frame time consistency. Value 24 prioritizes balance and wins in real gameplay smoothness. Value 38 attempts to blend both, but introduces instability. Value 40 overcorrects and sacrifices performance without fully eliminating stutter. This is exactly why blindly copying registry tweaks is a terrible idea. Windows scheduling is about balance, not extremes. The data is clear, and feelings don't matter here. Win32, priority separation set to 24, delivers the best overall experience. It provides stable frame times, strong lows, zero recorded stuttering, and predictable behavior under load. If you care about competitive Fortnite performance, responsiveness, and actual smooth gameplay instead of fake FPS flexing, value 24 is the correct choice. Everything else is either unstable, inefficient, or both. And that's not an opinion. That's what the benchmarks say. So if this video helped you, so please consider subscribe, drop a like on this video. Until the next video, peace out.